Welcome to Detroit's Darkest Times. This audio is about Halloween night in Detroit City years back. And this takes place on Hammond and Otis. And what it happens is people in the neighborhood, everybody's acquainted with each other. They all decide they're going to do a Halloween party at Mark Allen's house. And this is a dude in Detroit that we all knew. So everybody was getting their money together and getting their plan together, how they're gonna be able to stay out all night long on Halloween night. And you got a lot of guys, a lot of girls. So usually the girls would tell their parents that they're spending the night with, each other so they could actually be at the party. And usually these parties, it would be like an all night thing and everybody would just crash out at Mark Allen's apartment. So earlier in the night, people get their plan together where they can be out all night for one. Then they show up slowly to the apartment. And this apartment is decorated Halloween decorations and stuff like that. There's a lot of food. And then also there's a lot of beer, a lot of liquor. And as this party gets underway, a lot of people just, keeps bringing alcohol, food, chips, just all different kinds of stuff. People are coming in. And actually, this party ended up being way more people than expected. Because it was supposed to be just like the inner circle of people that was pretty tight in the neighborhood. That's basically what it was supposed to be, them and then some girls, and that's it. But it ended up being a whole slew of people. And this apartment is just a 2-bedroom apartment. It's got a kitchen, a living room, a dining room, and a bathroom. So it's really not that big, but it's a good size, but it ain't that big. So people are just constantly bringing in, alcohol, liquor, beer, stuff they want to eat, and stuff like that. Then they got the music going, but it's just the Halloween music. And people are just, socializing and stuff, but and having some drinks at the beginning. And so far it goes smooth. And then as the time progresses into the night, more people start coming. And as people's coming, everybody's bringing stuff. So this ends up being a party that was basically planned but not planned. And what had happened is a lot of people showed up, but then they was like some people were bringing people they knew that, and then it was people we didn't know, just basically strangers. And then there was some people that was coming that didn't know nobody there. They just seen that it was a big party and they was just showing up. And whether they heard about it at the liquor store or what the situation was, but just had all different kind of people showing up. So what had happened is the Halloween music's going, uh, people are drinking, smoking weed. Then these people that came, like I said, there's people there at the party that really wasn't invited, just put it that way. And nobody knew them, basically. It was just, they just came because they heard about it or whatever. And, and they wouldn't nobody taking, they didn't have a doorman where they're making sure who was coming in the party, and, it was just people just showing up, and that's how it was. Anyways, these two guys came, and then, and a lot of people was in like small huddles, like people that they knew they was in a huddle, and then, it went down a little bit like that, and then these two guys came, and then they had acid, and then they had talked to a few people there, and some of them people was willing to try this that they never even tried it before. And so next thing you know, as the time progresses, you got a group of people that's going into the bathroom, and this is where they're doing the acid at. So you get 4 or 5 people that goes into the bathroom, and they're all doing acid, and some's doing more than the others, and then as the night goes on, things start happening, and the first thing that happened was a guy had one of his legs fell through the floor of the kitchen. And then they got him pulled his leg out, got him sitting down at the table in the kitchen. And then he didn't have a shoe on, and then his feet were bleeding through his sock. And then he was telling people to look through the hole and see if they could see his shoe down there. So first there's people looking down there and lighting their lighter and seeing if they could see something. They couldn't see anything. So the guy that had the apartment, he went to get a flashlight in his room, And then when he went to get the flashlight, he come running out the bedroom with the flashlight. And then he was like, there was a wolf in his bed. And he didn't even have no pets. So he comes running out. He gives the flashlight to somebody in the kitchen, and then he runs out on the front porch. And he's, yelling, there's a wolf in his bed. And then, so the guy's foot's bleeding, and there's some people trying to help him out, And then there's a guy looking down in the hole, looking to see if his shoes down there. And then he's seeing something under the floor, but he's not for sure what it is. So then he's looking, and then he raises his head and he says, "Oh shit, y'all not gonna believe this." And then everybody's like, "What?" And he said, "There's a dead body under this apartment." And then everybody's like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, there's a dead body down there." And so he shines the light, and then the other person looks down there, and he's like, "Oh shit, how did that happen?" So somehow there was a dead body under the kitchen floor. So then there's a lot of people getting a little shook up now, because now you got a dead body, you got a party going on, and all kind of freaky stuff's happening. And then they don't know what to do, and they're like, "Well, we can't call the police or anything like that, because if we do that, we're all probably going to go to jail." And so the guy says, "Can you get my shoe? Is it down there?" And the guy's shining the flashlight. He said, "I don't see no shoe down there." And all he seen was the body down there. So he don't know if the shoe was maybe right beside the body and he couldn't see it or whatever. But he said, "Man, your shoe's not down there." And so he's trying to doctor his foot up. And then the guy comes back in the house from the front porch, and he's sweating. It looks like he just got out of the shower. And he's sweating and stuff, and everybody's like, "Well, what are you sweating for?" And it was, and then he was like, "I'm just still thinking about the wolf in the bed. And this was one of the guys that did the acid. And he said, "Well, I got a pair of house shoes in the living room I could get for the guy that, hurt his foot." And then they said, the guy with the flashlight, he's like, "Well, what are we going to do about the body?" And then Mark Allen, he's the guy that was on the front porch. He says, "What fucking body?" And then the guy said, "The body that's under your kitchen floor." And he said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Come and look." And so he shines the light down in the hole, and he looks down there, and he says, "Oh my fucking God, what am I gonna do?" And he said, "You mean to tell me I've been living in this apartment, there's been a dead body under my kitchen floor all this time?" So now everybody's just kind of, freaked out. And so he was like, "Well, get that rug that's in front of the stove and just cover the hole up with the rug." And then the guy's still saying, "Well, what about my shoe?" And the man says, "I can't see your shoe down there, man." And And so they cover the hole up with the rug. And then at this time, some of the girls are freaking out because they're like, uh, they don't know what to think about it. And they're all intoxicated. And they're high on weed, smoking weed. And like I said, there's only 4 or 5 guys that did the acid. So, uh, you know, and then after that takes place, he's got a metal cabinet that's on the wall, and it's got a lot of canned foods and stuff like that. And so somebody opens it to try to look for some glasses to make some drinks. They open the metal cabinet. It falls down. It's got everything in it: canned food, glasses, everything. It falls down. Shit goes everywhere. And then he's tripping out. Mark Allen's tripping out because it's his apartment, and uh, everything is just going, wrong, at this Halloween party. So the cabinet falls, everything falls all over, makes a lot of noise and stuff. You got the girls in the living room, they're scared, stuff like that. And but people are still kind of still partying. And then people are trying to figure out what to do. What are they going to do? Because now you got a body under the kitchen floor, and nobody knows what to do. People are talking about leaving and going home, because they don't want no part of it. So then one of the girls asks Mark Allen, she's like, why did you say there was a wolf in your bed? And he has a curtain over his bedroom door. And he said, because they are a wolf in my bed, go look. And then the girl looks, and she ain't did no answer. She just did liquor and smoking weed. And the girl looks, opens the curtain, and then she just gets scared and runs to the kitchen. And then people are like, what the hell's going on here? So another girl looked in the bedroom, and there was a dog on his bed, but he didn't have no pets. It wasn't a wolf. It looked like a wolf, but it was a dog. And then he said, I told you there was a wolf in my bed. And it was just some crazy stuff going on. And everybody was just, some people were scared. Some people just wasn't paying it no mind and just kept on partying. And you had people that were scared and didn't know what to do. Then some girls were talking about they wanted to go home, and people was like, no, you can't leave. You got to stay here and stuff like that. And because, a lot of people was intoxicated and been smoking weed. And then you had people that took acid. Some people took more acid than what they should have. And it was just a horror of a Halloween night. And then, as time progressed, that guy got his foot wrapped up, and then started wearing the guy's sandals that he had, and then he's like white as a ghost. And everybody was telling him just to stay sitting down because he lost a lot of blood out of his foot. And then you had girls trying to clean the blood up, and they was getting blood all over them, and getting it on their shoes. And one girl had it on her hands, and she wiped her face and had blood on her hands. on her face and stuff like that. And it just really was a wild and crazy night. And then we had some more people show up. And then when they get there, you got this girl. It's got blood on her face, blood on her hands, where she'd been cleaning it up. And you got that guy's foot's all bloody. And, there's blood everywhere for one. And then the people come in and they're like, they think that it's just, you know, just the way they just think it's like costume stuff. You know what I mean? And so they come in and they're just checking out stuff, and they see all the blood and everything, and they see people in like a scared mode. It wasn't like it was everybody was having a good time. You had a lot of people in there that was just straight up scared about the body being under the kitchen floor, and then and these people didn't know, what was going on. So this girl goes up to him, and they made a drink, and the girl goes up to him and she says, "Y'all came to the wrong party." And they was like, "What are you talking about?" She said, "Well, that guy that's got his foot all bandaged up, it's blood all over the place." And she said he fell through the kitchen floor and he lost his shoe. So they shining a light under the kitchen floor, and then they seen a dead body under there. And then they were like, "No shit." And she's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "We don't know what to do about it." And then they was like, "Well, where's it at?" And then, because one of the guys wanted to see. So she went over there and got the flashlight from another guy and moved the rug out the way and said, "Look down here." And then she shined a light down there and looked down there, and the body was down there. And they was like, "Oh fuck." And they was like, "Wonder how long the body's been there." And then everybody was like, "Well, we don't know, we just accidentally found it." And they said, "Oh shit, this is something else right here." So, you know, and so me and my friends, we're in the living room and we're drinking, and all this is going on, and then we're like, maybe we need to just go ahead and we're just going to leave and go to another friend of mine's house, Mike's house. And because there was just too much shit going on, too much crazy stuff going on at that party. And then Mike said, "Well, man, if we're going to leave, I'm going to take my liquor, my beer that I brought. I'm taking it with me." And then I said, "All right." I said, "We'll go to your house." And then we had another guy with us, and he was going to go with us. And then he was like, "Well, I'm going to get some more beer and take two." And so we kind of eased out of there. And as we eased out of there, we get out to the sidewalk, and then we're just out there, drinking and talking on the sidewalk. And the next thing we know, this dude comes down the street, which is this guy we knew. His name was Bam. And he comes down the street, but he's got this giant radio. It's like a carry-around radio, but it's a giant one. And he's got it on a skateboard, and he's pulling the skateboard with with a rope. And he comes up to us and he's like, "Hey, what y'all doing?" And then we're telling him about what's going on in Mark Allen's apartment. And he thought, we was bullshitting with him. He was like, "Man, y'all crazy." And then we're like, "Nah, for real, there's a dead body under the kitchen floor." And then he tells Mike, he says, "Watch my radio. I'm gonna go in there and see." So so he goes in there, and he's in there for a minute though. He ain't just in and out. He's in there for a little bit, and I think what he was doing was drinking some liquor. And then actually he went to see if we was telling the truth about the body being under the kitchen floor. So while he's in there, he asks them, he wants to see. And they let him see. So, but he's in there for a minute, and he comes out, and then he's kind of sweating and stuff like that. And I was like, "Did you see it?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, that shit's crazy." And we said, "Why are you sweating?" And he said, "Man, I just guzzled some liquor while I was in there." And he said, "What y'all gonna do about that shit?" And we said, "We ain't doing shit about it. We're leaving. And we suggest you leave too." So he's like, "Yeah." He said, "I'm gonna go with y'all. Where y'all going?" And we said, "We're going to Mike's house. We're just gonna finish the night over there at Mike's." And he was like, "Well, let me take my radio home." And he lived right there by him, and right over the railroad tracks, the first house on Otis. And he lived on Otis, but it was right there, Hammond. Then you had the railroad tracks. And as soon as you went over the tracks, it was the first house right there on Otis. He said, "I'm gonna go put my radio up, and then I'll catch up with y'all." So me, Mike, and this other cat, we walked around the corner, walked down Otis, and then we turned on Military. And then we were standing on Military, and we got all this booze with us, so we're drinking and talking and stuff like that. And then the next thing we know, we're there for like, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes or an hour on the sidewalk, just sitting there drinking and talking about all the shit going on. And then a Detroit police car comes riding by real slow. And then Bam is in the back seat of the police car. And you can tell he's got handcuffs on him because he's got his hands, and he's got blood on his face. And they just ride by real slow. And he's looking at us, you know. He don't say anything. He just looks at us when he rides past, and he's got blood on his face. And then we're like, "What the hell happened to him?" But anyways, that just in that 1 hour, something happened with him where he got arrested. I don't know if the police just showed up at his house because he just took the radio home. I don't know if the police just showed up at his house and to arrest him, and they got into a scuffle or whatever, or if they hit him or what happened. But he had blood on his face. They might have hit him in the head with blood running down his face or something like that. But anyways, like I said, the police car rides by real slow. We're all looking, and it's Bam in the back seat of the police car. He's got blood on his face. So this night is just going really, really wrong. You know what I mean? It's just a Halloween night, but it is really messed up. So then, anyways, we're all like, well, let's just go on to your house before something else happens, you know. So we head on to Mike's house. Then as we're heading up that way, we get picked up by a friend of mine, and then he lives over on Woodmere and Homer. So we don't make it to Mike's house. A friend of mine picks us up, and he says they got a party going on at his house on Woodmere and Homer. So, we all said, let's go, man, because ain't nothing going good over this way. So we all get in the car, we go to his place. And then he's got his house decorated. He's got the Halloween music on, stuff like that. So we're over there partying and stuff, and then we go out to his front porch, and they're smoking. And this old man that he knows in the neighborhood, he's over there. He's on the front porch drinking, and he said, "Boys, I want to tell y'all a story that happened a long time ago on Halloween night on this street." And we're on Homer, and the Woodmere is running the other way, but we're like a half a block up on Homer off of Woodmere. So, mind you, we all, drinking liquor and drinking beer and all this, and we done seen all this stuff that night. And then this guy wants to tell a story. And then we're like, wonder what he's going to say, because we done seen all kind of shit that night. So anyways, this older gentleman, and he's been around the neighborhood for a lot of years. And he said, well, years back, he said, years back when they used to bury people, they would only bury the coffin. And it ain't like today where they put the coffin down in a concrete tub and then they put a concrete lid on top of it. They didn't do that back in the day. They just put the coffin in the ground and buried it with dirt. Well, he said years ago, what had happened is there was, that's back when, acid was really big back then, and what the time he's talking about. And he said a whole bunch of people that lived on this street, they had a Halloween party. And they all was doing, drinking and doing acid and everything like that. And I would say it was like in the hippie days, maybe, because this guy was a real old dude and he was talking about a long time ago. And he said on Halloween night, a bunch of hippies that lived on that street, they had a big party and they was all doing acid. He also said they was sniffing paint and stuff like that. It was just crazy. And this night couldn't get no worse than what it was getting, And then he says they all got high on acid, sniffing paint and stuff. So really just out of their mind, basically. And he said a whole group of them decide, he said it was like 20 of them. He said they all decide to go to Woodmere, and Woodmere is right beside Woodmere Street is the Woodmere Cemetery. And it's a huge cemetery, if anybody's familiar with Detroit, Michigan. If not, if you're listening to this, you can look it up and see how big it is. But anyways, he said they all take shovels and they climb over the fence at the Woodmere Cemetery. They dig up graves. They pull the corpse out of the caskets, out of the holes. Then what they do is they take them on their street and they put different corpse. I think he said they did like 4 or 5 bodies and stuff like that. And you could look this up, you know. But he said they had took 4 or 5 bodies out of the graves, and then they had put one body on somebody's front porch. They put one body on somebody's car, on the hood of somebody's car, and then they had one in the road, and then they had one on the sidewalk. So I believe it's 4 or 5, something like that. And we're just freaked out at this point. You know what I mean? Because we done seen all this stuff, went through all this Halloween night, and then we go over to his place and we're partying. And this old man tells us the story, and we're all just, I don't know. We was just shocked and tripped out, stuff like that. Just with all the stuff going on, it was just something else, And then we thought the man just made up the story, right? And then he looked at us and he said, "Y'all think I'm making this story up?" And then we all said, "Yeah." And then he's like, "No, this really happened." So basically, some hippies back in the day got fried out of their head with on acid and sniffing paint, and went and dug up graves, got people's bodies out of the grave, and then put them around, the neighborhood, basically. And that was just one crazy Halloween night. And then, to beat it all, he said that after all of that happened and stuff, he said, all of this that's been going on is due to people taking too much acid, So basically, this whole story, this Halloween story that you just heard, is all make-believe. What I mean by that is the people on acid was just thinking all this happened, but it really didn't. None of this took place. Basically, the party was at Mark Allen's house. We had a party. None of that took place. We had a good party. We spent the night there. And that was the end of the Halloween story. But it was a good one, wasn't it? So if you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Detroit's Darkest Times, hit the like and the notification bell. Happy Halloween. We appreciate all of you. That's the end of this story.